There we go.
Thank you.
Welcome, Alex. Thank you. Just kicking off with Kim. So Kim, founder of We Teach Me, joining us on the stage this evening. Can we have a round of applause for Kim as well, everybody? Thank you, Kim. How do you find tonight, Kim?
You know what's really interesting is before everyone got on stage, we had a brief chat with both Shan and Alex, and we said, tell us about all the stuff that went wrong, and they both lit up like it's Christmas. I just want to hear all your horror stories, really. Just tell me everything that went wrong.
And don't be shy, guys.
Don't be shy. Let's just rip the band-aid off, and that's where the learnings come from, right?
There's always good there's always good learnings in that, absolutely.
Shan, let's get you.
Do you know what? Look, I think I've spoken about the people horror stories, but we've got some. I've got a particularly bad horror story that I'm going through at the moment with a ex-client of ours. So we had a relationship that was always based on price, and whilst volumes were sort of going through the door and we were doing it for a cheap and nasty price, then he was kind of happy. But what happened was his expectations started to change. He wanted more value, and of course what we didn't do was we didn't make sure that the pricing was commensurate with the service he was asking for. So as a result, he kept on wanting more, we kept on losing more, so our service levels started to drop, and then it just got to the stage where we just went, you know what, this is untenable. We gave him notice, and from then it kind of took me 7 months to get him out of the warehouse. When I finally got him out of the warehouse, he paid me everything I was owed, and now he's trying to sue us. So it was another example how we probably didn't manage the expectations right along the way. It was a very long relationship. We were together for 6 years. It was kind of like being divorced. In fact, I think this is going to cost me more than getting fucking divorced, I can tell you. But the expectation when we went into the relationship was everything for him was about price. And we went along and we tried to do everything as cheap and nasty as we could for him. But then as his expectations started becoming greater, and because we're always up for a challenge, we tried to sort of meet that without making sure the price met the service he wanted. And all of a sudden, he was sitting there going, well, hang on, you've been doing this for the last year. Why is it going to be any different now? So, he wasn't perfect in the relationship, that's for sure, but we probably could have done a lot better, absolutely.
Biggest learning?
Biggest learning about that is, I'm not doing anything on price anymore. I'm interested in dealing with clients that I can do half the volume with. It's that same old adage. They talk about, revenue is vanity, profit's sanity, and cash is king. And the problem I had with him is he paid me late, but he kept on throwing volume through the door. And I just got, a little bit excited by the fact that, I'd look at these sales a little bit like what you were talking about, and you think, oh, I've booked the sale, that's really great, but nothing was flowing through the bottom line. So definitely biggest learning out of that. Only interested in working with clients now that value what we do and are prepared to pay a fair price for what we're doing.
And if we pass the microphone down to Alex, I'm keen to hear some of your stories, Alex.
Horror stories, I've got a ton of them. But probably the biggest one that happened probably last year was we had a service provider, a public listed company that was providing services to AppsCore. We went into this relationship by default. We didn't necessarily want to be there, but as a result of a takeover of a related company, we were tied to them. The problem with these guys the problem is that when we initially wrote the contract for these services to be delivered, I didn't have my best business mind on, right? It was very emotional. There's a lot happening. There was a lot of disruption because there was a buyout and all these sort of things that meant that I sort of got dragged along with the process. And we ended up with a situation that we thought they would do what any other good business person would do or a good business would do, but they didn't end up doing it. So we had KPIs, we had service levels, everything in place, right? But what we didn't have is the contract that we had in place didn't back that all up legally. We ended up, probably cost me about 5 mil in lost opportunity and in revenue itself, which is a big hit, right? But that's sort of all been resolved. We ended up negotiating our way out of it and settled with them. But you know what, that is a horror story because that would have been an incident that is completely avoidable, right? And that's what I said before when I spoke. There is no place in business for egos and emotion. If I just went through what was logical, and it was simple, right? You dot the I's, you cross the T's, you get a good lawyer involved, right? And you take the emotion out of it, right? We would have ended up with a solid contract. My lawyer probably would have advised me, you know, only do a single year deal, as opposed to the length of deal that we ended up having to negotiate our way out of. So legally, we're up against a public listed company that we're using the best lawyers in town. And the option was to either drag this out in court, which would take another 8, 12 months or whatever, and have the business suffer and my mind taken off it, or we can settle. So we ended up settling, and we got out of the situation, but it still cost a ton, probably put us back 2 years to where we would be, cost a ton of money, so that's probably the worst that I've had recently.
During your most stressful times, guys, what's your go-to in terms of being able to remove yourself from that business environment and the thinking? So are you able to detach?
So during stressful times, I normally refer to my mates. So I've got a close group, very close group of mates. They're almost like family, about 5 guys. And they're always my sounding board. They're all business people. And I go to them and I talk through what my problems are. And because they're all in business, they all can relate, and they provide, you know, when I'm down, they provide options, because when you're under stress, you don't think properly. Everything is a challenge, right? Everything is cloudy, every option doesn't work, and there's pitfalls to everything, right? So sometimes all you need is someone to go, look, take this because it's simple. You can do it, and you'll find your way out of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I can relate to all of those, Alex. That's exactly right. I mean, I'm lucky enough to be a member of EO, you know, which is how I know Kim and we've met Alex. And, you know, we've got a very tight-knit group of peers and friends that we can talk business to. The best part about it is it's not about advice, it's all about sharing the experience. So when you realise you're amongst peers, it kind of makes it a bit easier. But, you know, in terms of dealing with, you know, the pressure, you know, for me, I'm a physical person, so I like to exercise a lot. And, you know, I find usually it's when you need it the most that you drop it off. So, you know, I try and reverse that. And when I need it the most, I probably get a little bit obsessive about it. So I probably do a little bit more than what I should. But, you know, I find just removing myself out of it and remembering that, you know, you just got to keep everything relative as well, right? You know, the world's not going to stop tomorrow. The sun is going to come up. And I'm not saying it's usually not bad, but it's probably not as bad as you usually think it is, for sure.
We've talked about your horror stories. Let's flip the story now. Let's talk about your most amazing year in business, and what do you think are the factors that made it amazing?
Look, we've had a reasonably solid year this year. You know, I'd say the 3 key things that we did to get us to where we are today is we addressed our structure. So we put our the right senior leadership team structure in place. You know, I kind of missed the chapter, I don't know how, but, you know, I missed the chapter about, you know, getting the right people on the bus but I forgot to put him in the right fucking seat. So I had this one guy and I had him in an operational role and he just was hopeless. It was amazing and he fitted all the core values and all that sort of stuff, but I put him in the wrong seat. And you know what we did at the beginning of the year? We put him in the right seat and he just blossomed and he just did everything he was supposed to do and everything he was really good at. And I'd only been employing him for 9 years before I figured it out. So now that I've got him in the right seat, he's doing an amazing job. We got a coach. We got a coach to help us as a group, and that's been helping us out. And you know, the coach is very good at holding us to account. And you know, we've put a structure in place, especially with our meetings and the measuring of our metrics, that again is holding the people to account as well. So I'd say they'd be the three key things that enables us to get to where we've got to this year. And you know, this is our grand final. These last 3 months is when we make all of our money, because you know, all of our clients need to get their stock into store by now, and if we haven't done it by now, well then we've missed the boat.
So what was the question?
What was your best year in business and why?
I reckon our best year is going to be next year. As I said, we came from a fairly bad position last year, and we're on the mend. But the reason it's going to be good is not necessarily because last year was so shit and next year's going to be relative, but everything to make the organisation work to hit our target market is being addressed. We looked deeply at who we wanted to target. We refocused because you know what, you deliver a service to a customer, they get used to it. Next year, you need to find something else that's going to continually impress them, because your customers get used to the level of service delivery and the quality of work that you do. Right? And the only way in a service business to retain your contracts, right, is to find more value. So what we did is, amongst the leadership team, is we sat down and we worked out what our target market is, what they needed, what the competitors did, and how we're going to do something different. But more importantly, how we're going to bring the team together so everybody's driving in the same direction versus just the sales guy or just the leadership team and so what. So the amount of ground that we've made in the last 3 months has been pretty positive and pretty exciting. So in the last 3 months, we were in good discussions with 2 of the major banks with their leadership team, which is very positive. The values that we bring and what we can bring to the table differs to what their current competitors do, or what our current competitors do. Where we've just landed a deal with Rio Tinto. We're about to land a deal with the major water corporation, right? And these are big, chunky, awesome customers to work with, right? So that's why I think, you know, that's why I think there's been a difference in the next 12 months, is that we've got our business structure in place, we've got the teams driving in the right direction, we've got the sales team presenting that value proposition that we offer in the right language, in the right way, and our customers like it.
I think it's almost time to put it out to the audience. What do you reckon, Kim?
I think so.
Yeah, guys, who's got any questions for our speakers this evening? Don't be shy. There we go. I'm going to pass the mic around. Thank you.
We were chatting before about you getting ready to sell your business. What are you working on to make that happen?
Look, for me, there's 2 key things. It's working on the profitability. So, you know, we're trying to strip out as much as we can from a sustainable point of view, but just as importantly, it's demonstrating that the business can operate without me. You know, because if I was trying to do this 12 months ago or 24 months ago, then the business revolved way too much around me on a day-to-day basis. So really the key one is, the 2 key things are making sure that we've got those processes so streamlined that it can clearly run without me, and then making sure that profit number is as good as it can be.
And you mentioned that your client sold his business for 65 million. Can you share what his product was?
Yeah, so his business was Albi Imports. So, funny degree of separation. So Danny Gorog, it was his father-in-law's business. So it was giftware, homeware, kitchenware business that was, an amazing business that they just managed to do really well.
Anybody else with a question?
Hey guys, just when you read startup books, they always say, do your market validation, do your product market fit, all that kind of stuff. But you guys, your approach has always been just, fuck it, let's just do it. So I'm wondering, how much stock should we put into doing market research and that kind of thing? And are they right? When you look at your approach now, would things change when you start up? Yeah, just curious about that.
Look, I think you should spend time doing that. I think in service business sometimes it's a bit easier to pivot, but if you're in a product-based business, you really need to get it right. Because in a product-based business, there's a lot of upfront capital and time required to build your product, to market it, to make sure customers want it and so forth. So for us, we do the same stuff for our customers. When we build an app, we run innovation workshops. We talk to our stakeholders what they want, what they think they want, and we build prototypes of it. Right? And then we go out and we test it with people out of the market. We might be outside a bank, let someone play with the app and see if they're interested in it, right? And if they're not, right, they might have burnt 20 grand, but they haven't burnt 5 mil or 10 mil, right? So that's how we do. I think it's valuable. I think it's important. You can probably get away with a bit less, as I said, with a service-based business because you can pivot quickly, but it sets you up with the right sort of structure and right sort of focus.
Yeah, I think market research is an interesting one because you can fall into that paralysis by analysis. We've done it much the same because we're a service-based business. We've done a lot of it on the hop. There's a number of markets that we've researched, we went into, we got it wrong. There's a number of markets that we kind of fell into and they managed to go really well. So I think you've got to take it and keep it relative and remember that if you do need to pivot, that you're prepared to do so, even if the research says that you may not need to.
Cool, thank you. Anybody else? Lady at the back, if we can pass that one around.
Handball.
Yeah. It's not an Afghan.
I just want to ask, who are key influencers in your life or in this industry who influences your business style and your leadership style?
Oh, jeez. That's a tough one. I got heaps of influences. My wife's an influencer. She wouldn't agree with me. Actually, she never agrees with me. So even if I said that, she wouldn't agree with me. But she's an influencer in her ability to listen. I'm not a great listener, and I judge people in 32 seconds. That doesn't help sometimes. But she's definitely an influencer for me. But I've been lucky along my journey in that I've worked for some great people. I used to work for a gentleman called Ron Finnemore, and he started up an organisation from Wagga Wagga, and he built it to a $2 billion business, and eventually got gobbled up by Toll, and then he went and did it again. And he was amazing because everything he did was all about continuous improvement. So, my first job out of uni was working at this organisation, and it was just drummed into you about continuous improvement and adding value back to your customers. And that was in the 90s, by the way, so many of you probably weren't even born then, right? But that's what he was talking about back then. Continuous improvement and adding value to customers. And, so I got a lot of that from him as well. But, I would say today, my key influences come from my network, especially at EO. And they may be people within my forum, or they may be people on the board, but you know, I try to make sure that I can have as many influencers as possible, and make sure that every time I've got some form of interaction with somebody, that I'm taking something away from it. So you know, I'm trying to keep it as open as possible.
For me, I don't have a single person that I look up to or think is an influence, but I do really like Warren Buffett. And I like him, not necessarily because, yes, he's a billionaire and he's amazing at what he does, right? But just the way he comes across, right? There's no ego. He's worth more than anybody in the world, almost. And yet he doesn't have a stigma around him being arrogant, being an arsehole, or, you know, there's none of that. He's just a genuine person. But more important, on a day-to-day basis, what influences the way I lead my company is the people around me. And I take bits and pieces. So Nick, my co-founder, he's very gung-ho. He will make decision on a drop of a dime, whether it's a good decision or not, right? But he just gets stuff done. And if it doesn't go right, you just fix it, because stuff can't go wrong that bad, right? That you can't fix it. As long as you realise that, oh, things going bad, I need to make a decision change. There's other people in my life that, such as I said, my core group, one of my mates, Jono, is very analytical. Right? He wants to build the most amazing systems, not as in software basis, right? But as in, when you build a company, you need processes and structures in place, right? And I take a little bit of that when I need it. Right? There's no such thing as a perfect process, and I guess that's at two ends of the scale. Nick will just go, let's do it. And we'll work out how the hell we're going to do it whilst we roll ahead. When Jono's like, we need to build a process. So depending on the challenges we face as a business, I go to different people, because I don't think there is one person that can go, you know what, you're amazing, and you know, I want to be exactly like you, because I'm not like anybody else. I don't necessarily have the process mind of Jono. I don't necessarily have, you know, the gung-ho and risk-taking of Nick. So I think you've got to be, you know, when you look at somebody, you don't necessarily want to be that person, because you probably will never be that person, because there's parts of them that, you know, their culture, their background, their growing up that you'll never be. But you take bits and pieces that you think you're weak at, right, and you try to copy it and mimic it, and you'll get some of the way there.
Anybody else?
I'm always fascinated about why people start things. So I want to ask you guys, why did you start your own business? Is it about the need of creating, or the need of doing something, or the need of fulfilling your needs, or what's the reason of you guys starting what you do now?
Look, again, for me, you know, I kind of fell into it. It just all revolved around, I had a need, so I just had to fulfill that need. But more now, though, with the work that we do, with some of the projects that we're creating at work and the new processes that we're creating, you know, the reason we're doing that is really just to help make our clients bigger and better. You know, so for me, the reason we're doing it, really, it's simple. I love helping our customers grow.
For me, I started the business because I got a little bit bored with corporate life. I felt that, you know, as I said, I did a lot of contracting and a lot of project management, but if I left that company, nothing would actually change. If I was sick and I didn't work there and I terminated my contract because I was tired of them, nothing would actually change. And that's why I got out of it and started my own business. When I initially got into it, I was like, you know, what's the worst that can happen? I crunched it out for 3 years, doesn't work out, I walk back into the same job again. There was zero risk value. But that's changed. Now what drives me is doing cool stuff with my customers, helping them in ways that they couldn't do themselves. Not because they're not smart enough, right? Some of our customers have the best engineers, the best architects, the most creative people that money can buy. But the value that we add is that, You know, I can walk into a customer and goes, I've got a team that's probably made up of the same people, but we can do it faster for you. We can add more value quicker. Right? And that's what drives me these days is I go speak to these customers, hear about their problem, and we work through the outcome, and there's tangible change in their business. Sometimes there isn't, and it's a bit disappointing, right? Because there's a lot more to sort of change than just the software itself. But you know, it's when you get a team humming, when you're sitting down with 10, 15 people, some of them from various different backgrounds, different skills, right? And the team's genuinely excited, and they're working 12, 15-hour days, not because I asked them to. I would never ask them to do that, right? But because they want to be there, and they want to make that change, right? And that's what gets me up.
Alex, in terms of you choosing to go into software development, when that was such an early period in its development, what gave you the confidence that that was the right move?
I don't think you ever know whether it's the right move, but I think you can make it the right move. I think we mentioned before, you can sit there and do a lot of research, and it all tells you the right stuff, right? But if you can't execute on it, all that research means nothing, right? So, did I know the right move? Absolutely not, right? And I've also mentioned before, I've seen a lot of people come to us business, so I want you to build this app, right? And I'll have 15 people tell me exactly the same thing, right? But you know that, 10 of them fail, 5 of them will succeed, not because it's the right idea, but because they executed well on it. Like, they were adaptable, they looked at all the various different factors, and they're willing to put in the hard yards. They weren't like, I give up now because I've been trying for a year. Maybe it's not the right thing. They'll go, you know what? Where's the angle to make this work? And they'll find those angles because they're creative, they're smart, and above anything else, they back themselves.
Any other questions?
So founders need grit and determination to be successful. What other traits do you think founders need to have success in their business?
Yeah, it's probably there's a few there. So it's a good question. I mean, it's that there's no two ways about it. It's that perseverance. You've got to have that ability just to push through. But conversely, you've got to have an element of patience in there as well. Just because you've tried something and it hasn't worked the first time, I suppose the reverse of persevering is being patient with it as well. Because if you really believe in it and you really believe in what you're creating, you'll make it work eventually. But it just may mean you've got to try something different. I think the other key thing is believing in the people that work for you. So if you've selected the right people, you've got to believe in them. You've got to be able to hand over the reins to them, because it probably feels like you don't want to hand over the reins, and you probably feel like you can do a better job than them. But at some point you've just got to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to hand this over. I'm going to believe in you. I'm going to put the right measures in place. So I'm going to trust and verify, but you've got to start with a trust. The verifications comes later, but you've got to have that trust.
I think the important things, as I mentioned, the backing yourself is probably the most important thing for you, just to start the business and get it there. But I think also as the company grows, as a leader, you need to inspire people to do good things. You need to inspire people, you need to relate, because nobody succeeds on themselves. There isn't a business in place that where one person, other than maybe sports people, but even they've got an entourage where your success is based on a single person. So as the team grows, right, you need to know how to manage people. Not everything makes the same person tick, right? Do all my developers want to be lead consultants? Absolutely not. If I wanted everyone to be a lead consultant, my company wouldn't work, because I'll be pushing people to do stuff they don't want. And the one thing I've learned, I guess, as the company grew, is that different people are motivated by completely different things. Not everybody wants to. Not everybody's motivated by money. Not everybody is motivated by for working from home. Not everybody is motivated by creating amazing things. Some people are just happy there to dawdle along. I've got a developer that's been with me for 5 years, like the grumpiest person you've ever met, right? Like absolutely,
That's all of them,
like,
isn't it?
Oh, mate, this guy is grumpy, right? But he's funny, and he just wants to sit there and code. And for a while I didn't actually understand. I was like, what do you mean? You don't want to earn more money? You don't want me? You don't want me to pay you more and go on work and cool shit on a client's site? It's like, dude, I just want to sit here and code. And it took me a while to learn that every single person in my company is different. And to be able to relate to that and be charismatic and try to lead them is probably the most challenging thing.
Any other questions? We are coming towards the end, so maybe a couple more, Kim. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great questions tonight.
Yeah.
Questions?
Obviously, both of you guys are very successful entrepreneur, and I think everyone sitting here wanting to know what is the process of, can you share your experience, how you land or find a new client to your company?
Look, for us, it's actually very easy. It's almost 100% word of mouth. So really, for us, it's referral based. So our business development process is just about getting what we're doing right. Because the better we do that, the more people are going to refer our services. Every one of our clients is a SME. We don't deal with any publicly listed clients or companies. But, if somebody needs logistics services, they're not going to go and Google it, or they're not going to go online. They're going to go to their buddy who's in a non-competitive industry and go, how do you do this? And he's going to say, or she's going to say, we use them and they do an amazing job. I wouldn't recommend anyone different. So for us, it's purely referral.
For us to get clients, we look at it in terms of a marketing and sales process. So, everything digital marketing, by the time a customer actually buys from you, they've actually done so much research, they probably know exactly what they want, right? And who they're most likely going to buy to. If that's the only point that you engage them, right, then you're behind the 8 ball already. So we do social media, we write blogs, we write educational pieces, right, to educate your clients, right? And that's what clients value, right? Because at the end of the day, if someone Googled AppCore as a company, they wouldn't understand what the difference is between us and our competitors and the other competitor next to that and the competitor next to that, right? But to build your audience and your customers before they're thinking of buying you is probably the most powerful piece, because they know your brand, they trust you, you're educating them. You're not asking them for a sale, right? You're just telling them, if you were to do this, this is how you would do it, right? From there, once we get the lead in, we have a team of salespeople, right? And they go out and sell the values of our company, right? We've got a team of 6, right? They go out and talk to customers, they nurture them, and sometimes we have to give away free work, especially for the big clients, right? Just to prove ourselves. And then it comes to closing the deal. But closing the deal, my sales guys know, right? The percentage of their ability to close a deal by the time that they've spoken to the client, because where they match the type of clients that we're after, right, and where we're the right fit for them, and whether our capability matches. If our capability don't match what our clients are looking for, we don't want them as a client because we'll mess it up. We'll get the money, but it'll burn our brand. So yeah, for us, it's everything from marketing through to sales, through to delivery, through to matching us as a customer, us as a supplier versus them as a customer.
I've got a little question actually. Maybe I'll throw it to you for the last one, Kim, but I've got a question. Shan, you talked a little bit about the gentleman that you learnt off in the early days and what you remembered him for, but how would you like to be remembered? So that's going out to both of you. What would be your legacy?
Tough question, Wayne. One I haven't put a lot of thought into. You know what? I think the thing for me would be firm and fair. That's the key thing. I'm probably a little too fair sometimes, but just to be firm and fair, and that, you know, I gave everyone an opportunity.
Okay. Good question, dude. You know, I don't. I guess me personally, I don't necessarily want a publicly known legacy. I just want the people that I care about to know my achievement in terms of what I've done, and not the company itself, right? But you know, if I have staff, and I say this to every staff or everybody that we employ, I want every staff that works for me to leave the company, if they do, to be better than they ever were when they started. Right, so that's what I focus a lot on. And if people talk about me, if I'm lucky enough, then I just want Apps Corp to be a great place to work.
And to end the entire season, I'm going to ask you both the question we ask every single guest. Knowing everything that you know now, if you could go back in time and tell yourself one thing, what would it be?
You first, dude.
Oh, no way.
Oh, what did I say? It'll probably be creative about what your company does, because as a company, right, the values and services that we provide mean differently to different people. It might be the same set of services, but people see different values in what we deliver. So when we present we used to pitch, this is what we do. We're an app development company. We create apps. That's not what they're interested in. What they're interested in is what we can do and add value to the customer. So from probably about 3-4 years ago, we changed our pitch to how we can add value to our customers. And I think every company should behave like that. Whether it's a bank, right? How does the bank add value to your life, whether it's a home loan or whatnot? Because if that's not what you're talking about, and hypothetically you're talking about interest rates, I can go get the same interest rate from any bank. The market's that competitive at the moment. So, if I was to go back in time and go how I'd pitch my company different to my customers, it would be the value that we bring that relates to them as an individual customer, as opposed to a product and a service.
For me, it would just be surrounding yourself with the right people, selecting the right people, and that's people above you, people that are your peers, people below you, and your customers. So, I think in the early days, we were all about chasing work, and sometimes that work wasn't the right work, and those people weren't the right people to work with. And when we were employing people, you'd spend a lot of time on their resumes and going into detail on that, but actually working out whether they're a right fit. So for me, it's definitely about surrounding yourself with the right people, but at every level. It's taken me a long time to engage a coach, and I've finally engaged a coach this year, and I think I said, it's one of the things that's led to the success that we've done. Now, at the end of the day, if I had have engaged a coach or surround myself by the right person 4 or 5 years ago, I'd be in a very different spot to where I am today. So for me, it's people.
Awesome. So guys, thank you very much to our guest speakers this evening. Can we have a round of applause for you, please? Thank you very much.